Professor, I'll start with you. Storage, your thoughts?
I mean, the minute he said that, I immediately conjured up the image of a Manhattan mini storage unit where you just like keep your leftover winter clothing and turn it over every summer and switch out your clothes. But this is more, obviously, than just some storage issue. And it isn't even a question of storage. Like the real question is, why does he have this top secret classified material in what is essentially a basement of a country club in Palm Beach, Florida? It boggles the mind that this would actually be the case. So to slough it off as simply a storage issue, I think really underscores the way in which some members of the Republican Party want to just downplay this, when in fact it's a major issue of national security that really demands considerable attention and accountability.
I want to bring in Neil here with a multi-part question, and we'll be able to test, Neil, whether you are on your A game, like when you were in the Supreme Court, where I know they do 3- and 4-part questions at your peril, or if at any point in the question you have to say, hey, I've got a little bit of vaccine brain, I need to pause, that's your right here, okay? So it's a comfortable and understandable bench for you. But the multi-part question is, 1, if you have any thoughts on storage, 2, your interpretation of the special master ruling, and 3, does a procedural win like this matter when it's this late in the review?
Okay, so on storage, I think that it's a red herring. The question is not where the documents were stored, it's that the documents were stolen. And the analogy, to use Professor Murray's point, is if in that New York, rented locker, there was a bunch of stolen equipment and it was discovered, I don't think your defense is, this is just about, where I stored it in this storage locker versus that. It's that you stole the stuff in the first place. And we're now weeks into this search, and Donald Trump has never once provided a single explanation of what in the world he's doing with those documents. Now, with respect to the special master decision today, Ari, I've read some terrible rulings in my life, but this one's pretty much the worst one I've read in a long time. I honestly think that any of my first-year law students would have written a better opinion. I mean, even Bill Barr called this request by Donald Trump for a special master a crock of the S word. And there's so much wrong with it. I mean, just to begin, the judge says that these documents are potentially protected by executive privilege, and that President Biden hasn't weighed in on that question. But the Justice Department actually filed a document from the archivist saying the president delegated to her and the Justice Department the question, is this stuff subject to executive privilege? She says no. She indeed says it's not even a close question. And yet the judge just blows that off entirely. And then the judge enjoins the entire investigation. I don't even understand how an investigation could quite be enjoined. There's serious constitutional problems and practical ones because the government's already looked at these documents, but she somehow thinks that she can enjoin the entire investigation from looking at these documents until the special master reviews that. We don't know how long that's going to take. So there's practical problems with it, and then there are very theoretical problems with it. I'm unaware of any circumstance in which a federal judge has done anything like this. She says, well, it's because Donald Trump's reputation is being undermined. That is what every criminal defendant says. Every criminal defendant would love a special master. Every criminal defendant says they're being unfairly targeted. Every criminal defendant says their reputation will be sullied. That can't possibly be the law. So in the end, I think that there's so much breadth to this ruling that I think the Justice Department has to appeal or at least seek reconsideration and clarification of what in the world she was thinking and what she meant. But in the absence of that, I think this is a real mistake.
All interesting. Do you remember part 3?
Part 3 was the practical consequences. And so I think that the Justice Department has 2 possibilities here. One, they can try and live with the special master. And I guess names will be submitted in a few days. And the judge did say in the last page of her order that this is just a, quote, brief pause. If it's truly a brief pause for a special master, that's one thing. The problem is that she hasn't actually told the special master what the task is. She says review it for whether these documents are protected by executive privilege. But the The Supreme Court has said it's really the incumbent president who decides that. The incumbent president has said, hey, none of this stuff is protected by executive privilege. So what in the world is a special master going to do? So I think there's so many practical problems that I think the department should go and seek clarification. And if the clarification comes back, yeah, the entire investigation is stopped. Then the department has to take an emergency appeal, an emergency stay to hold her decision in abeyance so that they can continue their investigation. And this matter may go up to the Supreme Court, but if it does, it should go up on a really quick timeline on the most expedited review. Trump's whole modus operandi is delay. And so I think the Department of Justice has to be very careful in trying to push this as fast as it can.
Understood. Professor, he seems on point to me.
He's certainly on point. I would just underscore that even if this is handled expeditiously, it will involve a delay. And it's worth noting here that the FBI has been stopped from doing anything, although she's allowed the other agencies like the Director of National Intelligence to continue. But the FBI is itself part of the national security community. And so this effectively prevents the FBI from funneling any of the material that it finds that is sensitive and does need to go to some higher authorities, to those higher authorities while this is going on. So it really does compromise national security while all of this is stopped. And I think it is a procedural win in that it basically halts this in its tracks. And even if it's handled expeditiously, that means there's at least 3 weeks, maybe a month in which this is all stalled.
Right. And I would only add to the really excellent legal analysis we've had here that while that is all true, and Neil identified parts of the ruling that are unusual, if you broaden out, the DOJ itself spent months trying to get to this answer. If we fast forward and in a month or two, it's back on track, that doesn't seem to me to be substantively all that different from the road they were on. There's a lot of reasons why you would not expect, as Neil outlined, more experienced appeals judges to go along with this uninformed, error-riddled argument that they can pause entire probes. So it may yet prove ephemeral, although the issues raised are significant. And Neil, as you know, there's some people in politics who say, I'm not a scientist, but, and then they say something about global warming. On behalf of the professor, I will say we're not doctors, but you get a clean bill of health mentally today. Thank you for sharing everything.